Rachel Wallace was a devoted mother, a supportive wife, and a woman who once gave up her promising legal career to build the perfect family. But on the morning of her 40th birthday, she woke up to an empty house. No hugs, no breakfast, no family. Moments later, she discovered the truth. Her husband and children were vacationing in Dubai without her. The betrayal didn't come with a confrontation. It came through an Instagram caption from her daughter that read, "Daddy's treating us since mom's boring anyway." What followed wasn't heartbreak. It was strategy. And what her husband never saw coming was that Rachel would weaponize his lies, tear down his career, and rebuild her life from the ashes, with quiet, devastating precision. Think a regular woman can bring a powerful man to his knees in just one day? Keep watching. And tell us, where are you watching this from? Drop a comment below. I woke up to silence. Not the kind that soothes you into the day, but the kind that wraps around you like a warning. No smell of coffee. No sound of Max thumping down the stairs, yelling about his missing soccer jersey. No Olivia slamming her bedroom door with her usual teenage flair. And no Eric whispering that mysterious line he'd teased all week, "Your gift is going to blow your mind." Just silence. I reached for my phone instinctively. It was 9:03 a.m. later than I usually slept, but today was different. Today was my 40th birthday. The screen lit up with birthday messages from friends, old coworkers, and my parents. But not from my kids. Not from my husband. Confused, I slid out of bed and wrapped my robe around me. Maybe they were making breakfast? Surprise. But the kitchen was immaculate, untouched like a showroom. The special bread Eric had bought me yesterday was still sealed. The strawberries still sat in their carton, unfurled and untouched. I called out, half hoping this was a prank. "Eric." No answer. "Olivia?" "Max?" Nothing. I walked down the hallway. Their bedroom doors were open, beds neatly made. Too neatly. The closets were open, hangers swinging slightly. A sick chill crawled up my spine. Their shoes were gone. The toothbrushes missing. No note. No text. No explanation. Back in the kitchen, I stared at the fridge door, cluttered with family photos that suddenly felt foreign. I tried to call Eric. It rang twice, then went to voicemail. I texted. Nothing. I texted Olivia. She read it, then went silent. I tried Max, my sweet Max. The message was marked read. No reply. My hand trembled as I opened Instagram. Olivia lived on that app. And there was a photo of the three of them standing beside a shimmering infinity pool. Eric in linen and sunglasses, raising a glass of champagne. Olivia and Max beaming. Behind them, a skyline unmistakably Dubai. My stomach turned. Caption. Surprise vacation with the best dad ever. Hashtag Dubai, hashtag luxury life, hashtag spontaneous adventure. Daddy's treating us since mom's boring anyway. Mom's boring anyway. I stared at those words until they burned into my brain. My daughter posted that. My family had planned an international vacation without me. On my birthday. I scrolled further. First-class seats. A luxury resort suite. Olivia filming a room tour. Max waving at the camera. Eric smiling like a man who'd gotten away with something. I sat on the floor back against the cold kitchen cabinets. My robe loosened as I hugged my knees. I wasn't crying. Not yet. The emotion hadn't crystallized into anything specific. Anger? Betrayal? Confusion? It was a storm with no shape. The strangest part? I wasn't even shocked. I was empty. I poured a glass of wine not because I wanted to celebrate, but because I needed something to anchor me. At 11 a.m. I took a sip and stared out the window, the silence now roaring. My phone buzzed upstairs. I didn't move. Not yet. I wasn't ready to see what fresh humiliation waited for me there. Instead, I picked up the family calendar we kept in the drawer by the fridge. I flipped back through the last few weeks. Eric had blocked off this entire week as busy. No details. No mention of a trip. No hint that he and the kids would vanish. I tried to remember the last time he looked at me like I mattered. Maybe our anniversary when he gave me a necklace I wore every day since. He said it was timeless like you. Maybe that was a lie too. Was I boring? Had I become invisible in this house? I quit my legal career when Olivia was born. Supported Eric's rise to partner. Held our family together through every milestone. Had I faded in the process? Was 40 so repulsive that they had to escape me to the other side of the world? I stood. The sadness was still there, but something else had joined it. Something sharper. Upstairs, my phone had stopped buzzing. I walked to Eric's office and stared at the locked drawers of his desk. A memory surfaced. He kept the key taped under the bottom drawer. He thought I'd never look. But today I would. As Rachel begins to piece things together, the question is no longer why they left. It's how long he's been planning this. The desk drawer gave a small groan as it slid open, the key trembling between my fingers. Inside were the usual things: pens, old receipts, a few loose business cards. But in the bottom drawer, taped neatly behind a stack of file folders, I found what I hadn't even known I was looking for. A slim manila envelope unmarked. And behind it something harder. A phone. Not his usual one. It was an older model, cheap, no case, no fingerprint lock. Just a screen that came alive with a touch. My breath caught as I swiped it open. No security. He hadn't even tried to hide it properly. The messages loaded fast. One thread in particular made my stomach twist. Eric, same time Thursday? Vanessa, always. You bringing wine again? Eric, only the best for you. Can't wait. Another sent just days before their Dubai departure. Eric, kids think it's a surprise trip just for them. Told them mom needed rest. Vanessa, she won't suspect anything. Boring people never do. The words blurred for a moment. I set the phone down gently. Not because I was afraid to drop it, but because I felt like I might break instead. I reached for the envelope. Inside were printed statements from an account not linked to our shared financial app. Jewelry purchases. Dinners at restaurants I had never heard of. Hotel stays booked in our own city. Thursdays. Always Thursdays. One line item stood out. 3 first-class airline tickets to Dubai. Bought 4 weeks ago. Paid in full. I stared at the date. He had planned it before he brought home my favorite takeout. Before he kissed me goodnight and told the kids to let me sleep in. My eyes scanned the receipts again. A name popped up repeatedly. Vanessa Lang. His new assistant. She had joined the company 8 months ago. I remembered the name because Eric had insisted on hiring her himself, despite HR recommending someone with more experience. Vanessa was 26. Blonde. Always laughing too hard at Eric's jokes during holiday events. Always standing just a little too close. I had noticed but ignored it. Trusted him. Trusted us. I opened a drawer in the hallway and pulled out our home calendar again. I flipped back 6 months. Eric had blocked out nearly every Thursday as late meeting. Some vague excuse. Client dinner, strategy session, board review. But now the pattern was clear. Downstairs, the wine sat half-finished on the counter. I took a long sip and stared at the burner phone again. More messages. Vanessa, Dubai will be perfect. He has no idea. Eric, flights booked. Kids are excited. Olivia already posting. Vanessa, she's in on it? Eric, of course. Told her it's a bonding trip. Said mom would just complain anyway. I read that last message again. Out loud this time. Mom would just complain anyway. I said it slowly, like I was trying to convince myself it had been said by someone else. Someone not my husband. Someone not the father of my children. I picked up the necklace Eric had given me for our anniversary just a few weeks ago. I held it in my palm and thought about the bracelet I had seen on Vanessa's wrist in a recent office photo. Nearly identical. I hadn't made the connection then. But now I knew exactly where that jewelry had come from. The burner phone buzzed in my hand. A new message. Eric, boarding now. Can't wait for freedom. 1 full week. I stared at the screen until it dimmed and went black. Freedom. That's what he called it. He left me behind not because I was boring. Not because he forgot. He left because he wanted to be free of me. And he used our kids to do it. But I was done standing still. I wasn't going to send a tearful message. I wasn't going to beg for answers. I was going to find the truth. And I was going to use it. Armed with proof, I stopped being a confused wife. I became a strategist, and I was about to fight back. The house remained quiet as I sat down at my desk, the burner phone placed carefully beside me, glowing like a loaded weapon. Every nerve in my body buzzed, but not from panic. From clarity. This wasn't just betrayal. It was strategy. And now it was my turn. I opened the bottom drawer of my desk and sifted through a box of old business cards, The kind you collect over years of polite networking and forgotten holiday parties. Buried near the back, I found the one I needed. Marcus Nolan, Director of Corporate Security, Wexler Tower. I remembered handing his daughter a recommendation letter years ago for her internship. He owed me whether he remembered it or not. I dialed his number and waited. Marcus Nolan. Marcus, it's Rachel Wallace. Pause, then warmth. Rachel? Oh, it's been years. How are you? Busy, I said calmly. And needing a small private favor. I explained that I was putting together a surprise anniversary video for Eric, something to showcase his dedication at work. I needed footage from his office. He hesitated, but the moment I reminded him about his daughter's internship, his tone changed. What dates are you looking for? Thursday nights, I said without flinching. The past month. Another pause. I can send you temporary access links. They'll expire in 24 hours. Discreetly. Perfect. An hour later, a secure link arrived in my inbox. I closed the blinds, dimmed the lights, and clicked. The security interface was straightforward. Date, time, camera. I selected last Thursday, 7 p.m. outside Eric's office. The footage began to play. Employees filed out. The hallway emptied. At 7:43, Vanessa walked past the camera holding 2 glasses of wine. She didn't knock. Just walked right in. I switched to the interior feed. Eric stood from behind his desk, smiling in a way I hadn't seen in years. She handed him a glass. They clinked. They laughed. Their conversation started professional. Client updates, budget reports. But their bodies told a different story. She sat close. Their knees brushed. Her hand lingered on his wrist as she passed him a folder. At 8:16 he kissed her. It wasn't tentative. It wasn't a mistake. It was confident, practiced, intimate. My mouth went dry. They moved to the couch. Their voices lowered. I turned the volume up slightly. She has no idea, Vanessa whispered. Eric chuckled. Thinks I'm planning something romantic at home. This is better. You're sure she won't figure it out? Rachel? She's too busy picking out grocery coupons. She stopped being interesting years ago. My grip tightened on the desk. The chair beneath me felt suddenly small. Vanessa reached into her purse and pulled out a velvet box. Inside was a bracelet, shimmering, delicate. A twin to my necklace. It's beautiful, she said, slipping it on. Only the best for you, Eric replied, leaning in. When I get back from Dubai, we'll talk about your promotion. I paused the video. The air around me thickened. I forced myself to watch 3 more Thursdays. Each week the same pattern. Wine. Couch. Kisses. Plans. Laughing at me like I was some outdated version of a woman no longer worth knowing. I cataloged every moment, time-stamped it, downloaded the files, saved them into a folder labeled evidence. I printed screenshots. Cross-checked with the burner phone messages. Paired receipts with footage. Every piece fit like a puzzle that only I had the box for. But this wasn't just personal. It was professional. Eric had violated company policy. Their executive handbook was clear. No romantic relationships with subordinates. No misuse of resources. No compromise of ethics. And Eric, careless, overconfident Eric, had documented every infraction for me. I remembered that their firm's managing partner, Richard Avery, was known for his zero-tolerance stance on executive misconduct. A man obsessed with reputation, particularly among their wealthy, conservative clientele. Eric wasn't just a cheating husband. He was a liability. Now it was no longer about betrayal. It was about justice. Rachel was going to destroy his career before he even landed back on U.S. soil. The morning sunlight filtered through my blinds as I sat at my desk, the calm in the air at complete odds with the fire building in my chest. The evidence folder sat open before me. Timestamps, screenshots, receipts, recorded messages, and security footage all organized with surgical precision. I hadn't slept much, but adrenaline had replaced fatigue. This wasn't a moment for hesitation. I opened my laptop and pulled up a fresh email. In the to field I typed, richard.avery@sullivanandgray.com. Then added, board@sullivanandgray.com. The subject line was simple. Urgent. Executive Code of Conduct violation. The body of the email didn't begin with emotion. There was no mention of betrayal, heartbreak, or abandonment. Only facts. To the board of directors and Mr. Avery. It is with professional concern and ethical obligation that I report multiple breaches of Section 8.3 of your Executive Conduct Policy, committed by partner Eric Wallace. The violations include a sustained romantic relationship with subordinate employee Vanessa Lang, misuse of company resources including office space, time and expense accounts, for non-work-related personal activity, financial misappropriation of client entertainment funds for personal indulgences. Attached are security camera recordings from Thursday evenings over a 6-week period, expense records, and digital messages confirming said misconduct. Each piece of evidence has been cross-referenced by date and is fully verifiable. As someone who has previously consulted with your firm on legal matters, and who values the ethical framework your company claims to uphold, I trust this matter will be handled with the seriousness it warrants. Sincerely, Rachel Wallace, JD. I attached 3 select video clips, just enough to leave no room for ambiguity. I included receipts and screenshots of texts. I left out the most damning personal bits. Not because I was protecting Eric but because I didn't need to oversell the case. The evidence stood on its own. I had spent the past 17 years suppressing parts of myself to make room for his ambition. But this was me at full capacity. And I intended to be precise. I installed an email tracker extension, the kind I used to teach interns about back when I practiced. It would alert me the moment someone opened my message. The clock on the wall read 9:14 a.m. Every Tuesday at 9:15 a.m., Sullivan and Gray held their weekly executive meeting. Eric had always called it old school because phones had to be turned off. Everyone in the room was expected to give full attention. I waited until the second hand hit 9:15 exactly. Then clicked send. The message left my outbox instantly. By 9:18 the first open notification arrived. Then another. And another. My tracker blinked repeatedly. Forward. Opened again. Within 10 minutes, all 10 board members had accessed the email. By 9:27 I received a text from Marcus. What did you just do? Security's been called to the executive floor. I didn't respond. At 9:52 an automated message appeared in my inbox. User, eric.wallace@sullivanandgray.com. Access status, terminated. Effective immediately. Authorization level, executive. I leaned back in my chair and let that sentence echo in my mind. Terminated. Not suspended. Not investigated. Immediate. At 10:06 a.m. another email arrived. This one from Richard Avery himself. Mrs. Wallace, thank you for bringing these violations to our attention. Sullivan and Gray takes all ethical concerns with utmost seriousness. Action has been taken effective immediately. Should you need further assistance, my office is available to you directly. Sincerely, Richard Avery, Managing Partner Sullivan and Gray. I opened the firm's website and refreshed the Our Team page. Eric's profile had vanished. His smiling face, once featured prominently, was gone without a trace. At 10:29 my phone rang. Eric's name lit up the screen. I let it ring. And again. By 10:50, there were 23 missed calls. I silenced the device, set it down, and watched as the desperation poured in. Texts followed. What did you do? My accounts are locked. Security just escorted me out. Richard won't speak to me. Answer the phone. I didn't. I poured myself a second cup of coffee and looked around the quiet of my home. For the first time it didn't feel empty. It felt like space. Like clarity. Like control. Rachel had publicly broken him, but there was still one confrontation left. And she was saving it for when he returned home. By the time the sun had dipped below the trees lining our street, the front porch was cloaked in shadow. I sat on the top step, folder in my lap, house behind me waiting. The lights inside glowed warm through the windows, casting the illusion of a home untouched, unchanged. But everything inside it had shifted. At 9:47 p.m., headlights swung across the driveway. The Uber slowed to a stop and 3 familiar figures stepped out. Olivia first, dragging a suitcase, her shoulders hunched under the weight of confusion. Max followed, his backpack slung low, glancing nervously around. Eric was last. He looked smaller somehow, like the air had been knocked out of him mid-flight and never returned. He spotted me immediately. His pace quickened, his voice low and sharp as he approached. What did you do? I didn't rise. I didn't flinch. The question, I said evenly, is whether you understand what you did. Behind him, Olivia's brow furrowed. Mom? What's going on? Dad said there was an emergency. There was, I said. Just not the kind he told you. Max stopped short at the bottom step, eyes wide. Eric looked over his shoulder and hissed, "Kids, go inside." The locks have been changed, I said calmly. They'll need a new key. Eric stepped closer, trying to tower over me like he used to. Rachel, don't do this here. I didn't. You did. I stood slowly and opened the folder. The first photo faced him. Him and Vanessa entangled on the office couch, timestamp clear, faces unmistakable. He tried to snatch it, but not before Olivia caught a glimpse. Dad, she whispered, her voice cracking. Is that? It's not what it looks like, he said, voice tight. It's exactly what it looks like, I interrupted. I handed Olivia another page, her Instagram post with the caption highlighted. Daddy's treating us since Mom's boring anyway. Did you come up with that? Her face paled. Dad said it would be funny. That you'd laugh when you saw it. I looked at her gently. Did I look like I was laughing yesterday, Olivia? When I woke up to an empty house. When none of you answered my calls. Max stepped forward. I told you we should have called Mom first, he said, glaring at Eric. I didn't want to go without telling her. Eric's jaw tightened. I was trying to give her space. She's been overwhelmed. No, I said, my tone sharper now. You needed control. Z spun a story. Told them I needed rest, that I wouldn't enjoy a vacation. You manipulated our children to justify abandoning me. Eric's face flushed and he turned to the kids. Go wait by the door. I'll fix this. They should stay, I said. They deserve to know why their vacation was cut short. He stepped onto the bottom step, but I blocked him. Jake and Olivia can come in. Their rooms are exactly as they left them. You, Eric, can find another place to sleep tonight. Your things are boxed in the garage. You can't just lock me out of my own house, he snapped. I smiled without warmth. This house is in my name. It was my grandmother's. Renovated with my trust fund. I can and I did. Max didn't wait for another word. He brushed past Eric, eyes down, and stepped inside when I unlocked the door. Olivia hesitated. It's okay, I said softly. This isn't your fault. She turned back to Eric, pleading. Dad. He shook his head. Your mother's trying to destroy this family because she's bitter and jealous. I stepped between them. Olivia, check his phone. Look for texts from Vanessa. Don't touch my phone, Eric barked. That was all she needed. Her silence said everything. She stepped around him and disappeared into the house. Now alone, Eric's posture deflated. You've destroyed everything, he said, voice barely above a whisper. No, I replied, looking him square in the eye. You did. Every lie. Every Thursday night. Every charge you thought I'd never notice. You built this. I closed the door behind me, leaving him in the dark. I didn't look back. Rachel had taken the confrontation he never expected, and turned it into the reckoning he could never escape. Now she would begin dismantling the rest. Not out of spite but out of necessity. It was time to finish what he started. The law office smelled faintly of coffee and old paper, familiar in a way that felt both comforting and resolute. I sat beside my attorney, Stephanie Grant, a woman I had known since law school. Across the table sat Eric, looking hollowed out, thinner than I remembered, and next to him, a man in a pressed gray suit flipping through a folder with mounting concern. His new lawyer. Likely expensive. Likely overwhelmed. Stephanie opened the meeting with practiced composure. Mr. Wallace, Mr. Halden, she nodded. We're here to settle the terms of divorce between Rachel Wallace and Eric Wallace, under conditions specified in their prenuptial agreement and supported by supplemental documentation of misconduct. Eric's lawyer adjusted his tie. Before we go any further, I just want to say my client is open to reconciliation. There's a family here. Children. We don't have to escalate. I turned my gaze directly to Eric. This is not escalation. It's resolution. Stephanie slid a thick folder across the table. The prenuptial agreement signed 17 years ago includes Clause 3.2. In the event of infidelity, the community property division becomes void. Additionally, attached is documentation of financial misconduct, the use of family funds for personal affairs, luxury gifts, travel expenses and unauthorized withdrawals. Eric's fingers tightened slightly, but he said nothing. Stephanie continued. We have receipts, transaction records, and statements from the firm verifying use of company expense accounts for personal entertainment. This is more than infidelity, it's misappropriation of both household and corporate assets. Eric's lawyer opened the folder. As he flipped page after page, the silence in the room grew heavier. I told her I'd fix it, Eric muttered. She didn't have to burn everything down. I leaned in. I didn't burn it. You did. I just documented the ashes. Stephanie placed another sheet forward. Mrs. Wallace is not requesting spousal support. She will retain the house, full custody of the children, and personal assets accumulated prior to marriage. Mr. Wallace will retain his individual investment portfolio and retirement accounts. Child support will follow state guidelines. Eric's lawyer raised an eyebrow. This is surprisingly clean. Generous even. I'm not being generous, I said, my voice steady. I'm being practical. I want it done. And the confidentiality clause? The lawyer asked. Stephanie nodded. In exchange for swift cooperation, Mrs. Wallace agrees not to pursue further legal action or release personal details of Mr. Wallace's misconduct to the press, beyond what is already public within his firm. Eric scoffed. You think I care about appearances now? Of course you do, I replied. That's all you've ever cared about. He shifted in his seat. We built a life, Rachel. 17 years. We raised 2 kids. I studied him. Yes. And you spent the last year dismantling it while smiling in my face. He tried one last card, the one he always fell back on. The kids need stability. We could still maybe try counseling. We owe them that much. I looked him in the eyes and said softly, we owe them honesty. And peace. This is the only way they'll get it. His lawyer pushed a pen toward him. Eric held it for a long moment, then signed. His hand trembled slightly, his signature more jagged than usual. When the last page was complete, I reached into my bag and pulled out a small velvet box. I placed it gently on the table. This doesn't belong to me, I said, voice quiet. It never did. Eric opened it. Inside was the necklace he'd given me on our anniversary, the one that matched the bracelet Vanessa wore in those videos. He didn't say a word. Stephanie stood and extended her hand to the opposing counsel. We'll file the official paperwork today. The divorce will be finalized in 6 weeks. As we left the office, I didn't look back. I walked out of the building and into a late afternoon sun that felt warmer than anything I had experienced in months. With legal closure obtained, Rachel stepped into the unknown. But for once it felt like freedom. The soft click of the door closing behind me sounded louder than expected. Dr. Mason's office was calm, almost too calm. A small fountain gurgled quietly near the window. A bowl of smooth stones sat on the coffee table, and a single chair across from mine waited like it knew something I didn't. I sat down slowly, my fingers laced in my lap. She gave me a moment before speaking. Take your time, she said gently. This space is yours. At first I said nothing. The words were there, but after 17 years of keeping my thoughts muted for someone else's comfort, I wasn't sure how to begin. When I finally spoke, it was simple. I don't think I've ever had a space that was just mine. That became our starting point. Week after week I came back. I unpacked not just the betrayal, but the subtle erosion that came before it. The way Eric used to interrupt me when I spoke, the jokes he made about my reading habits, how he never introduced me as anything more than his wife. Dr. Mason helped me see what I had been too loyal, too tired, or too hopeful to name. You built your identity around being his partner, she said during our 3rd session. Now you get to find out who Rachel Wallace is. I didn't know where to start, but I wanted to try. I dug my old watercolor set out of the closet. The brushes were stiff, the colors dusty, but I sat by the window and painted anyway. The first few were a mess. Then one night something shifted. I stayed up past midnight, lost in color and texture. When I stepped back from the page, it looked like something that came from me, not from a role I had played. I joined a book club, not the one Eric used to mock as wine-soaked housewives, but one focused on women's memoirs and self-discovery. I didn't speak much during the first meeting, but I listened. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel invisible. I reached out to friends I hadn't seen in years. Some answered with surprise, others with open arms. Over lunch, my old law school roommate confessed, "We stopped inviting you. Eric always made it sound like you were too exhausted or overwhelmed. Eventually, we figured you just didn't want to come." It wasn't the first time I'd heard it. Each reconnection was like pulling a thread back through the fabric of myself, slowly mending what had been quietly unraveled. At home, the healing had its own rhythm. Max clung to me more than usual. He kept close, asked if I would always be home, checked on me before bed. I reassured him the best way I knew how, through presence, through routine, through love that didn't shift beneath him. Olivia's response was different. She withdrew at first, quiet and embarrassed. Her guilt ran deep, not because she had planned the trip, but because she had believed Eric's version of me. One evening, as we prepared dinner together, she glanced up from chopping carrots. "You're laughing more," she said. "You seem different." I paused before answering. "I'm remembering who I was. And figuring out who I want to be." A few minutes later she said softly, "I'm sorry for what I posted. I would never have written that if I'd known." I wiped my hands and pulled her into a hug. "I know, sweetheart. We were all being shaped by something we didn't see clearly. We started building new traditions. Friday movie nights became democratic. Everyone got a turn picking. Sunday brunch wasn't rushed anymore. We lingered, we laughed, we asked each other real questions. Family counseling helped too. Max told the therapist, "I'm mad at Dad, but I still love him. Does that make me disloyal?" The counselor answered beautifully. "Love isn't a finite resource. You don't have to pick sides. You get to love both parents and still be honest about how you feel." Olivia was slower to open up, but gradually she did. One day, she brought me a paper flower she had folded herself. "For your nightstand," she said almost shyly. That night, I wrote in my journal, "I'm beginning to feel like a person again. Not someone's wife. Not just someone's mother. But me." Rachel had reclaimed her identity. But life had one more surprise waiting. The morning of my 41st birthday arrived without fanfare. No cryptic hints. No extravagant promises. Just the soft knock of my son at the door and the smell of burnt toast drifting in behind him. "Happy birthday," Max whispered, holding a tray with wobbly coffee and slightly over-buttered toast. "Olivia made me swear not to tell you what she's doing downstairs." I smiled, took the tray and kissed his forehead. "Thank you, sweetheart. It's perfect." He beamed. Not because it was perfect, it wasn't, but because he knew I meant it. Downstairs, laughter and the faint hum of pop music floated up through the floorboards. When I finally made my way down, the dining room had been transformed. Paper flowers lined the walls. A banner stretched across the ceiling, hand-lettered in glitter ink. "Mom's Rebirth." Olivia stood by the cake she had made herself. Chocolate with buttercream, my favorite. Not the carrot cake we used to have every year. That was Eric's favorite. This one was mine. My parents arrived soon after, carrying my childhood favorite dishes. Friends followed, bringing thoughtful gifts. An art supply set, a new hiking backpack, books by women I'd quoted in therapy. My sister brought photo albums from years I'd nearly forgotten. Pictures of a young, vibrant woman before she became someone's anchor. That afternoon, I stood with a glass of sparkling cider and looked at the people around me. People who chose to be here, who saw me not as a role but as a person. "I'd like to say something," I said, and the room quieted. I glanced at Max, now nibbling his second piece of cake, and Olivia, her eyes full and proud. "This past year didn't go how I imagined it would. It started with silence, pain, and the kind of betrayal that cuts in places you didn't know could bleed. But it also gave me something I didn't expect. Clarity. Strength. A chance to rebuild from something real." I paused. No one moved. "So today I'm not celebrating just a birthday. I'm celebrating this, what we've all built together. With honesty. With effort. With love that doesn't disguise itself as something else." I raised my glass. To lessons learned the hard way. To the people who helped me stand when I thought I couldn't. And to the quiet kind of power that comes from becoming exactly who you are. There was no applause. Just warmth. A shared understanding. Later that evening, after the dishes were done and the house had settled, I stepped out onto the back porch. The garden I had planted during the early weeks after the divorce had started to bloom. Lavender, tulips, and climbing roses that hadn't yet reached their trellis. New growth reaching upward. The screen door creaked. Olivia joined me, wrapping herself in a blanket. "Mom. You seem, I don't know, Free. I looked out at the garden. That's because I am. She was quiet for a moment. Do you ever miss him? I thought about it. Not about Eric the man, but about what I had once believed we had. Sometimes I miss the idea of what I thought we were. But I don't miss what it actually was. She nodded slowly. I think I get that now. I reached into my pocket and handed her a folded note. It's from the firm, I said. She opened it and read silently. Ethics Compliance Division? She asked. They offered me a position. Flexible hours. Real work. My own title again. Her eyes widened. You're going back? I am. Not because I need to prove anything, but because I want to. She smiled and leaned into me. I'm proud of you. And in that moment I felt the last of something old fall away. That night, before bed, I found the velvet box that had once held my anniversary necklace. The one that matched Vanessa's bracelet. I wrapped it in plain paper and slipped a note inside. This never belonged to me. I dropped it at the post office the next morning. This wasn't the life I'd planned. The journey here had been brutal. But it had brought me to this place, surrounded by people who saw me, loved me, and didn't ask me to shrink. Eric once promised my birthday gift would blow my mind. He was right. It just wasn't the gift he thought it would be. And this time I was the one who gave it, to myself. Sometimes, the greatest gift life gives us doesn't come wrapped in ribbons or whispered promises. It comes disguised as loss, betrayal, or silence. But beneath that pain is a doorway, an opening to rediscover who we are when no one is watching, when no one is shaping us into something smaller. Rachel didn't just survive the devastation of her marriage. She rewrote the ending. With quiet strength, sharp clarity, and unwavering dignity, she reclaimed her voice, her purpose, and her peace. Now it's your turn. Have you ever walked away from something that once defined you only to find something stronger in yourself? Tell us your story in the comments below. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful real-life narratives that remind us all, we are never as powerless as we've been led to believe.